I had to click on the actual item.
Yes.
Well, good. All right, so let me get the full
I'm
screen
so
here.
happy. This is great. All right.
There we
Yeah,
go.
from the beginning. All right. So we
From
have
the
the
beginning.
misuse of average exit velocity for 2022 PitchCon. It's Todd Zola of Masters Ball. Todd, the legend, take it away.
The misuse of StreamYard and sharing. All right, so we're going to talk about average exit velocity. I wish I had, when I talked to Nick about it, I wish I had called it the truth about average exit velocity. Although, as we'll find, I think it's being misused in some areas. So we'll go through that. Now, I also want to mention, I'm looking to talk about global overall thought processes. I'm not looking to invent a new sabermetric algorithm with the data that I present. It can be people once you see what some of the results are, you may want to adjust or do some triple regressions, etc. But that's not what the purpose of this data is. So I'm keeping it kind of simple. So when we go to Statcast, we're not when we see red and blue, we're not misinterpreting and jumping to conclusions that we shouldn't jump to. So with that, we will go to, before we get into it, I know people have been talking about this, but real quick, I'm going to be using correlation. And it's very simple. It's a simple mathematical process. I won't read the slide, but we'll show you some numbers, but it's here for the presentation when you go back to it. If you do go back to it, and real quick, an R equals 1, perfect correlation when one set of data perfectly translate to the second set of data. R equals -1 using the same numbers, but reversing the order. It goes down, and that's going to come into play in some of the upcoming data. And as an example, perfectly random, I just took the numbers and I kind of played with them until I got something very, very close to 0. And just to sort of put things in perspective, an R equals 0.5. And you may take a look at these and, how can I, they look the same. They're just a bunch of gobbledygook. So let's go to the R equals 0 for a moment. And we notice that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 adjacent points going up and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 going down. So 4 versus 5, and it matters how much they go up, how much they go down. But that's why it's considered random. And here, if we look at how many going up, there's 9. So there's let's not hit that while we're doing this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So out of the 9, 6 of them are going up, and therefore that's why you get the correlation in the neighborhood of 0.5. It's just to keep things in perspective. So now let's jump into the crux of the talk. Factors influencing exit velocity. All right, I think some of this is common sense. Bat speed, right? The faster you swing the bat, the ball's going to come off of it. Pitch velocity, centering of the contact. I'm going to talk about each of these a little bit more detail, and swing plane. So let's go through them. Bat speed. Let's think about if I was younger and more adventurous, and I would have come up with some really cool photos here of, because the example I want to use is you're chopping down a tree. Okay, where is the tree in relation to when you're swinging swinging the axe? Is the tree right in front of you? Is it behind you? Is it a little in front or directly lined up with you? If you're trying to trap down a tree, that you're going to be a little bit behind the tree, right? You want to build up that swing before you hit the blade against the tree. Same idea with a baseball swing, in that you want to make the contact out in front of you. That's when the bat speed is at the greatest. So the point of contact matters for exit velocity. You're a little behind the pitch, you're ahead of the pitch. The bat is either just speeding up or slowing down. So the point of the contact is going to matter when it comes to the exit velocity. The same as the height of the contact, right? When you're swinging, you're not swinging up high, and you're not trying to hit the tree at eye level with your axe. You're not trying to hit the tree down at your ankles. There's a sweet spot right in the middle there. So the height of the contact matters too. swing on a high pitch, you're not generating the same bat speed as a swing on a lower pitch or on a low pitch. Again, the optimal bat speed is somewhere in the sweet spot in the middle there. Pitch velocity. This is a little sketchy because there's so many other factors that go into hitting a baseball other than the speed of the pitch, the movement, the deception, swing late, swing early. But it's still interesting to me that the faster the pitch coming in, there is a trend about exit velocity. So the exit velocity also matters on the exit velocity matters on the pitch velocity. Knuckleball has been starred. This is all last year's data. The knuckleball has been starred just because there wasn't enough data last year. We had the bartender from Baltimore, I believe, that came in and pitched an inning or two. So I had to go back a few years, and that's the one exception where the exit velocity is much higher relative to the speed of the pitch. And that, I think it should be obvious. When a knuckleball doesn't knuckle, it's just sitting there for you, and that's when they hammer it. Swing plane. This to me is perhaps the most important of the factors that I don't say it gets ignored, but it tells us so much. It's involved in so much of the granular analysis. We're going to break down the batted ball types into 5 different types here. And the average exit velocity, well, first let's talk about the actual swing plane itself. The maximum, when you want energy or force, momentum, occurs when the trajectory of the bat and the trajectory of the ball are on the same plane, right? Every pitch is coming down. There's some deceptive high risers with 4-seamers, submarine balls, they start low, but gravity is taking over. Every pitch is coming down by the time the batter swings and hits it. Therefore, optimally, to transfer the most energy, the highest exit velocity, you want the swing to be going up. You want the swing to match the trajectory of the ball. The closest the swing matches to the trajectory of the ball, the higher the exit velocity that gets transferred to the ball. And we can kind of see that here with the different contact types, that the average velocity on a fly ball and on a line drive, outfield line drive, is higher than on a hard ground ball. And that's just because if the ball's always coming down, if you're hitting the ball and it goes down, you're hitting, not only hitting on top of the ball, but it has to be well on top of it in order to make the trajectory go down. And you're just not you're not transferring as much. So the hard grounders, the average exit velocity is a little bit lower. All right, maximum exit velocity. One data point, okay? We've got 400 balls in play, 500 balls in play, 100 balls in play for other players. So the maximum exit velocity is one data point. It's the perfect confluence of all of these other factors. And actually, one I left out in point of contact is where it actually hits in the bat. Does it hit the end of the bat, hit the knob? If anybody's been up in cold weather and you get the shakes, the bat absorbs more of the energy and doesn't transfer it. Hit up towards the handle. There's just not enough meat of the bat. So that it also matters. The more exit velocity is where you hit the sweet spot of the bat too. Okay, sorry, I meant to put that. We'll edit that back in later for the YouTube people. All right, maximum exit velocity. Again, one data point. What do we think we can learn? People, I've seen it. We've seen in some of these presentations. They're putting maximum exit velocity when they talk about a player. We hear it. We see it on the broadcast. It's talked about, and it's sexy. I know the last thing you need is a 380-pound, 58-year-old guy saying sexy, but that's what the maximum exit velocity. That's what it is. So, but what can it tell us intuitively? Well, the harder you hit the ball, maybe the more hits you get. I don't know. Maybe the more power you have. To me, those are intuitively, that's what maximum exit velocity would tell us. Unless it's, that's what we should be learning from it. So here's where the correlations come into play. So I correlated a player's maximum exit velocity with the player's BABIP, their launch angle, the home run percent, which is home run per plate appearances, and their WOBA, which weighted on base average. So it's kind of driven by power. So maximum exit velocity, there are people better in statistics than I am that can tell you exactly what a 0.13 correlation means, the percentage, the probability of it mattering. It's this. I don't want to base my pick in a draft on a 0.13 correlation. I'm just not comfortable saying, wow, their maximum exit velocity is really, really high. Therefore, their BABIP is way too low. It's going to get better. I'm not on a 0.13 correlation. I'm not willing to go there. Launch angle, we'll show you why we did that in a minute. But there is some correlation of power. There is some correlation of power, which is something to keep in mind. So here's the maximum exit velocity on batted ball types. I'm leaving out soft ground ball because for obvious reasons, no one had their maximum exit velocity on a soft ground ball, not even Victor Robles. So I also like pizza, and this looks a lot like a pizza. So that's why I want to share this graph as well. No, but the point being, Giancarlo Stanton's maximum exit velocity last year came on a ground ball. So the point being, we're trying to discern something on a single data point, and it could be a hard ground ball. We don't know. I mean, to me, the fact that it's all mixed up, this has to do with the launch angle. It could be on all of these different types of hits. You're going to use one data point out of 500 with a perfect confluence of all these factors, and we're going to decide something. Really, we're really going to use that one data point in an analytical manner? To me, it just doesn't make any sense. And this actually kind of shows it. Now, one thing I do want to show, though, is because I don't believe you. I think that maximum exit velocity means something. What if the top of the scale correlated to power and the bottom was inverse, so that when you put them together, it comes out to random. So this isn't quite the rolling stuff that Scott was doing last time, but it's kind of that idea. I staggered, I sorted by maximum exit velocity, and then I staggered the top 60, then the 31 to 90. So they're overlapping of 30 players, the same 30 players. And as you can see, throughout the entire array of 362 players that had 100 batting ball events, it's essentially random. So it didn't have to do with, well, the top players correlate, but the bottom players don't. And that's why it's random. It's simply, to me, maximum exit velocity, I don't care. If I didn't know it about a player, it wouldn't matter to me. To me, it's not predictive at all, but it has some relation to power. Keep that thought in the back of your head. All right, average exit velocity. What can we glean, or what intuitively, what should average exit velocity tell us? Well, before then, I want to kind of ask a question, or not so much ask a question, but if someone were to ask me, all right, what is it? What's the velocity of this pitcher? What's he throw? How fast? What's his velocity? I'd say 87, and you'd say to me, really? I saw he throws like 94, 95. So you asked for the average. You asked for the velocity. You didn't ask me for the fastball. Oh, yeah, he throws his fastball 94, and he throws his slider 82, and depending on the pitch mix, the average of all those pitches is 87. Well, I don't care about that. I can't learn anything. I don't know what he throws, the percentage of them. I can't learn anything from an 87 mile an hour average. We don't know the repertoire. It's the same idea with average exit velocity. We've got the different hit distributions that we just talked about. Each of them has their own independent velocity. It's component. I'll call them component exit velocity. I don't want to look at average exit velocity, but yet that's what StatCast has. When you go and you see the red and the blue, you look at that red level, you look at that red, 98th percentile, 88th percentile AEV. Wow, look at that BABIP. That's terrible. It's got to get better. Look at that average exit velocity. Or perhaps the reverse. It's blue. And like, man, how can he carry a BABIP that high with that blue? Well, it's average exit velocity. To me, that's the answer. We need to know a little bit more about what goes into BABIP and what goes into power, because those are the two things we're thinking about, right? Can a guy get a hit, and can a guy hit a home run? Maybe one of these days we'll say guy and girl. I have to, when I talk about the industry, I got to be careful now. We can't, because there's so many females doing wonderful things in the industry. I know there's females pitching. So when I get to the pitching part, I'm going to have to say guy and girl. It's just a habit we're going to have to break, hopefully sooner than later. Anyway, so this is the component average exit velocity versus the component BABIP. First, I wanted to show overall. So the overall exit velocity versus the overall BABIP. 360 players had 100 batted ball events last year. And I should mention, I'm doing this for last year's data, but it's the same pattern. The numbers are slightly off, year to year, but it's essentially the same pattern. So I'm comfortable displaying last year's numbers. So there's a slight correlation. Yeah. So if you look at the average exit velocity, should it correlate to BABIP, the 0.172R? There's a slight, yes, it's better to hit the ball hard. But again, are you going to make a pick in your draft and you're on the clock in NFBC? Are you going to, look at that? I don't know that I want something else. I want another reason to make a pick other than he's got a high exit velocity, therefore his BABIP should go up. Because it doesn't mean it's a 17% chance. It's just low. Soft ground ball, there's not that many of them we should mention. And I should also mention this as well, is that anytime you do things like this, parsing the data into these, I don't know what my source used to delineate soft from hard ground ball, fly ball from infield line drive, from outfield line drive. I apologize. I don't know what it was, but it's the same as anything. If you use the same data throughout the course of your particular study, it should be okay, at least for the general trends. So so this may be different than you might see elsewhere. The numbers here, and it also depends on the sample size, because I'm using a number of certain. Again, hard ground ball needed 50 batted ball events, et cetera. If you can see it on the chart. All right, so soft ground ball, there was a negative correlation, which meant the softer you hit it, the more chance of getting a hit. Again, 0.12, even negative 1.12. It's just not that much of a correlation, but increase your chances a little bit. Hard ground ball, okay. Hard ground ball, again, it's still just 0.18. Yeah, I want a hard ground ball. I have a better chance. But it's just because a guy hits a hard ground ball doesn't necessarily mean the BABIP's going up. Fly ball, again, a negative correlation. This just tells you that these are the soft fly balls that fall in. Outfield's playing deep, and these are the balls that fall in front of the outfielders. And that's so the weaker you hit the fly ball, slightly better chance of getting hit. Infield line drives, just telling you, it just matters where it goes. It's got nothing to do with the velocity of it. Is it an atom ball, or did it find a hole between fielders? Outfield line drive, here we have something. Again, it's not huge correlation, but it's a 0.29, 0.3. A little more comfortable saying, an outfield line drive exit velocity, pretty good for a hitter. To get the data, you have to really scrape, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Some of them, it's out there. A little bit more, but even so, it's still not. It's not eye popping. It doesn't pop. It doesn't. I'm not. Again, I want something more to base my decision on. Want to show just a little bit. You're talking about ground ball. Well, maybe it's better for fast runners, slow runners, et cetera. Yes, there is a correlation between this is an exit velocity. This is BABIP. So there is a correlation between a player's how fast they can run and their hard ground ball BABIP and soft ground ball BABIP. The sprint speed and the home to first makes sense, because sprint, the higher the sprint speed, the better, and the lower the time home to first, the better. That's why you get the negative correlation, and it matters, but just between the numbers, between the lines, I'm sorry, it matters more where it was hit than it does than the speed. You improve your chances of getting a hit because you're fast. All righty. How are we doing for time? We're doing okay for time. we're doing actually really good for time. I try to speed it up a little bit because of the mess up at the beginning, so I can start to slow down again. Flyball average exit velocity. All right, so we just learned that exit velocity doesn't mean a whole lot for base hits. It really doesn't. Not, at least not as much as we thought it did. What does it tell us though about power? We want to look at it for base hits, BABIP, and for power. And the only thing that matters for power is flyball. I should also mention that based upon this data source, 90% of the home runs were classified as fly balls, 10% were outfield line drive. So the majority of the data about the display is what they classified as fly balls. So what does fly ball average exit velocity tell us? I wanted to correlate to max EV just out of curiosity. Because it was some pretty good correlation, let's show it. So just a player's max EV and a player's fly ball average exit velocity, they correlate pretty well. But that, if you think about that, kind of makes sense, just because the power nature, the max EV had a 0.5, 0.46 correlation. So there was something there. But here's where it gets fun. You correlate, and again, keeping in mind, this is strictly on fly ball home runs, at least for the beginning of it. The home run for fly 8.82. That's up there. That tells me something. Fly ball distance 0.91. That really tells me something. Home run distance 0.425. This goes back to the study done by Mike Podhorzer from Fangraphs. Fangraphs. Pods did a study, and I've been I think it probably referenced it more than he does at this point because it's just so cool. In that your home run your best indicator of power is fly ball distance. It's not home run distance, it's fly ball distance. So you can, one of these home run estimators, the expected home runs, there's a bunch of different ways of doing it. One way of doing it is just looking at a player's fly ball distance and see how many home runs they should have gotten based off of that fly ball distance, and was it above or below. Then you got to keep in mind park factors, etc. But even so, it's a really good predictor of indicator of unexpected home runs, lucky, unlucky, etc. And it showed here the correlation between. Well, it makes sense. I mean, the harder you hit a fly ball, the further it's going to go. So that's kind of intuitive. The fact that it's such a good predictor for home runs, however, might not be. Fly ball percent. I just was curious, because the average exit velocity in fly balls was higher. Are you more likely to hit is there a correlation does the higher velocity give you more fly balls? And it really doesn't. That's just because there's a lot of, it just has to do with bat speed. In that, there's this uppercut swings on people that just don't hit the ball very hard. They don't have the bat speed. So it's not a whole really good correlation there. The home run percent and the home run per batted ball event, these are all overall home runs and overall batted ball events, not just fly balls. Or the home run they're total home runs. They're not just fly ball home runs. But we're still using average exit velocity of fly balls. And again, there's a strong correlation. So if I am trying to do one of those next level sabermetric triple regression formulas to predict home runs, etc., my input is not max EV. My input is fly ball average exit velocity. That's sort of the takeaway that I'm getting from this. In that max EV, again, it's sexy, but I just don't think it tells as much as fly ball average exit velocity. I know on StatCast, I think you can get fly ball / line drive, which it may not be as, the correlations may not be quite as tight as they are for just fly ball exit velocity, but I think they're better than using max EV. I think that I don't say goes without saying, but I think that's what it's showing. So it's a little bit counterintuitive, but I think it's a little bit interesting. I went way too fast. It's still got stuff to talk about, but regretting how fast we're going. So maybe I can see some questions. Maybe we can get some questions. All right, but let's on to the next topic anyway. All right, actually, just before we go to the next topic, one more thing I wanted to mention was the yearly fly ball average exit velocity. We can see it's been going up. Now, one of the factors I didn't mention was the ball as far as exit velocity goes. And that's because the player can't control it. So it's not a variable under the player's control. But back in 2019, one of the things what they did was they increased the coefficient of restitution of the baseball, and it bounced. It was bouncier. It was so it went up, and you actually can see if you take a look at how they're going up. Not literally. There's a big jump or a bigger jump, or very small jump from 2019 to 2020. So some of that jump was the ball, other than the fact that people are just swinging harder and using more of an uppercut swing, and you don't even have to swing harder. If you swing the uppercut, you're naturally going to transfer more energy power to a fly ball just because of the plane of the swing. And we 92.2 last year, so it's going up, a little bit less, but still going up a bit. Last year with the two baseballs, and one of them was bouncier, but then kind of swung a parachute with the higher, the ball itself was a little bit lighter, so the exit velocity was up, but once it was in the air, the higher seams, the air resistance slowed it down. So it's just part and parcel of all these studies. We have to sort of just keep that in mind when we're getting really, really granular. All right. So the next sort of topic is, how does this relate to pitching? To me, it was kind of counterintuitive that batters hitting the ball hard wasn't as useful as I thought it would be. Honestly, wasn't. I wish I'm a scientist. You never want to go in with a predetermined answer, but to me, it was counterintuitive. But you have to open your mind up, and okay, that's what it is. What about pitching, though? How often do we hear he doesn't strike a lot of batters, but he can induce weak contact? So he's, I'm going to keep drafting him because he can induce weak contact. Is that important? That's the question we want to answer. So again, using component BABIP versus component average exit velocity against, let's see what the BABIP against was for some of these different batted ball types. Soft ground ball barely correlates. That's what we'd expect, and it just matter where it gets hit. Hard ground ball, all right, 0.24. Again, without getting too statistical about what that means probability-wise, yeah, you prefer your pitcher to do a softer ground ball because there's less of a chance of getting it being a hit. But even so, again, 0.24, it doesn't pop. It doesn't mean just because a pitcher, induces hard contact that it's bad, or soft contact that is good. 0.24 just isn't that great of a correlation. It just isn't. Fly ball, again, pretty much random. Infield line drive, random. Outfield line drive, pretty random. Oh, I should mention that this is starting pitching. Just because of the batted ball events, because I want to get enough of them in to make the sample somewhat significant, I separated out starters from relievers because if to get enough samples. And the other reason being, relievers have a 2-pitch arsenal, or they're facing more platoon matchups, etc. It's just a different scenario. So I wanted to see, I don't know, but I wanted to see if there was a difference in the correlation between a starter and a reliever. So this is starter data, and this is reliever data. And it kind of follows the same pattern. And so I probably could have rolled it in, but even so, I'm good to have left it out, just good practice. But we follow the same patterns. Hard ground balls, more of a correlation. This slide puts it all together. What we do here is we're looking at the data from the batters, the starters, and the relievers, and it kind of goes together. Except, and by go together, good for a hard ground ball for batters, and you prefer the pitchers not to give up the hard ground balls. But the outfield line drive, and I did it in red because that doesn't match up. The outfield line drive, it's better for a batter to hit an outfield line drive. It's a better chance of being a hit. Remember, this isn't home run. These are battage average and balls in play. So these are outfield line drives that land safely, even though I just said only 10% of the home runs were on outfield line drives. But for the starter, it's rather random. So it doesn't matter if a pitcher gives up hard contact on an outfield line drive, at least in relation to his BABIP against. Some pitchers it mattered, some pitchers it didn't, but overall, it turned out to be random. And those are the only two that kind of didn't match. But you think about it, I think this feeds into the whole Forrest McCracken dips, in that all pitchers sort of nestle around a 300 and now 290 BABIP, where hitters can establish their own. Well, this is an area where hitters can help establish their own BABIP, is on outfield line drives. And if you think about it, a batter is playing in the same park or where they hit all their outfield line drives could have a better chance of being a hit. It's the same batter, the same trajectory, the same where the outfield line drive's going. So I can kind of see where a batter's BABIP on an outfield line drive would matter on how hard it's hit. But a pitcher's facing a bunch of different batters, so they're going all over the place. So once you go all over the place, you get random. All right. Let's see here. What's next? This is the pitcher fly ball average exit velocity correlation. So I just want to kind of show here that I don't know, the pitcher's ability to induce soft contact. I'm not wicked psyched about drafting them just because it might help with a hard ground ball, but I don't know. I mean, at least as far as base hits, the other end of it's power, right? Yeah, here's where it matters. You do want your pitchers to induce weak contact on fly balls. You're going to reduce home runs. It's intuitive, but a lot of stuff that we thought was intuitive wasn't, was counterintuitive. So just because something's intuitive doesn't make it duh. It's important. But here we do get a decent correlation, between keeping the average exit velocity of the fly ball down. You're going to reduce power. How can you do that? Is it a skill? Sure. Four-seam fastball. The way a four-seam fastball works is the spin. You think of spin, you think of movement. A four-seam fastball spin actually counters gravity. I'm sure people have talked about this, and Nick's going, not again. Someone else explaining this. Well, sorry, Nick, but the four-seam fastball doesn't drop. The brain is trained for an average four-seam fastball. A batter's brain is trained it's going to drop X amount. A higher spin four-seam fastball doesn't drop that amount, but your brain is thinking it's going to. That's where you swing, but the ball's still up high. The ball's now above the bat. If the ball's above the bat, now you're hitting below the ball, so you're going to hit it into the air, but you're not getting meat-on-meat contact. Therefore, the exit velocity of that fly ball is lower. So that's one way you can reduce fly ball exit velocity. Just the fact that you're swinging at a high pitch. Mentioned before, you can't the bat speed of a high pitch isn't the same as a bat speed of in the sweet spot in the middle of the plate. So there are ways skillfully that a pitcher can induce weak contact on a fly ball and have it mean something. All right. Real quick summary, and I have 3 players I'm going to talk about, and if there's still some time, which again, because I sped through it, there should be some time. I can maybe answer some questions. It doesn't have to be about this. It can be about anything, but I do want to show you 3 players how I use these principles to help me analyze certain players. Well, let's go through real quick. We'll summarize. The maximum exit velocity, sorry, folks, it means very little. Overall average exit velocity barely correlates with BABIP. Okay, the okay, that's overall. There's some correlation between hard ground ball, average exit velocity, and outfield line drive. Okay. We talk about the speed. So yeah, faster runners, it matters a bit. All right. But fly ball average exit velocity correlates very well with power, better than max EV. And while it helps for pitchers to induce weak contact, it isn't as important as perceived, except on fly balls. To me, of all the different, counterintuitive, of all the different, things that were discovered, that's the one that kind of made me go, I'm going to have to readjust how I evaluate pitchers. I'm not as concerned. A couple years ago, Shane Bieber gave up a ton of hard contact, and we're all saying, I don't know if he can't keep up that strikeout rate. Look at that hard contact. Well, if he wasn't giving up hard contact on fly balls, didn't matter. And again, I'm not sure if Kyle Hendricks is the best example, but because he's got some other issues, but somebody gives up weak contact. I don't know that I want to, he beat his ERA. Look at his expected ERAs. Look at his xFIP. Look at his Sierra. Look at whatever indicator you like to use. He beat it because he gives up soft contact. Well, unless that soft contact is on fly balls, and it's then I don't care. I don't care if he gives up soft ground balls. And I know defense matters, and when you get granular, but to me that was the biggest takeaway: is I'm going to be less likely to take pitching, and this is where you used to be able to get bargains with pitchers because if you didn't get strikeouts, you didn't want the pitcher, or you get him at a discount. And this is where you can think about getting, he can induce weak contact. I'm going to get him at a discount. I'm not so sure I'm going to go that route anymore. All right, I want to talk about a few players and look at some of their numbers and how I can go about applying this information. Brandon Crawford. It was been pretty well documented that he did some work on his swing, talked to a swing doctor, if you will, changed his approach. So if you take a look at the StatCast levers, I should have put him here, but which I didn't. Should have put him here. But the point being, if you look at the average exit velocity, that's not so hot. It's less than it was. Well, I know last year was a short year, blah, 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 but you're not going to look at that, and your first inclination might be, well, that power surge from Crawford, there's no way he can keep it up. It was all luck. Look at that average exit, especially in that park. How could he keep it up with that average exit velocity in that park? But if you take a look at the component average exit velocities, you will see a spike in the fly ball average exit velocity. That's what I'm interested in. And this is backed up by the reports of the swing change and the approach, etc. And you can see it in the launch angle, LA launch angle. The more fly balls went up as well, but they go hand in hand. But my point being, if you're just looking real quick and you need to make a decision on Crawford, and you go to a StatCast page and you see the average exit velocity, there's no way he's keeping that power up. It's later in the draft. You're looking for a middle infielder or even a reserve. Crawford's not your guy. He was just so lucky last year. Well, I don't know. It's not that he was lucky. The question is, will he sustain that approach? Will he continue to the swing plane? Will he continue to attack the ball in the same manner? I think there's a lot better chance that he will. Now, will he repeat last year's number? You never expect anybody to repeat a peak. It just doesn't. You just don't think that way. But I might be higher on Crawford than somebody else who just looks at the average exit velocity, and then there's that sweet spot in between where I can draft him, where I don't have to pay what I think he's worth because I think he's worth more than you do, so I split the difference, etc. So that's an example of how I use this in my thinking, in my analysis of players. Brandon Crawford has a decent chance to sustain the power. Joey Votto. Joey Votto. All right. he pretty much came out and said, "I'm bored. I'm bored of walking. I'm gonna swing for the fences. I'm gonna expand my zone. I'm gonna change my approach." Now, this is kind of not from this data, but it's just more looking into him. He got hurt, and then he had that white hot streak. He actually changed the approach before he got hurt. He just didn't get the results yet. So it's not like while he was convalescing on the IL. You know what? When I get off the IL, I'm going to start swinging for it. No, he had made that decision earlier, but the results just weren't there, commensurate with the exit velocity, etc. Just sort of a point of interest. But I take a look at his numbers, and here the average exit velocity did go up, but it also went up. Actually, compared to last year, it didn't go up for ground balls, but it stayed the same as it did for 2019. But his average exit velocity is up over 2019. Joey Votto not only went with an uppercut swing. To me, it just increased the exit velocity. He let it loose. He went from choking up, trying to make contact, to just letting it flail. And I'm old. I can write my own ticket at this point. I want to start driving. I'm sick of my fantasy players telling me that they don't want me to walk. They want me to hit home runs. Okay, I'm going to hit home runs. And he made just a complete approach change. And so not only did he go with the uppercut, and that's naturally going to transfer more velocity to fly balls, it looked to me like he's swinging with a more force and just choking up, or not choking up like he used to do. That we didn't talk about the mass part of MV or MV squared as far as exit velocity, but the bat itself matters. The heavier bat, of course, you have to be able to swing it. You swing the same bat speed with a heavier bat, the exit velocity is going to be higher because of the mass component of the physics, and choking up changes that mass component, etc. So I look at Joey Votto. Can he continue? Is he going to? We talked about that. The previous seminar, someone asked the question, Votto can't be real because it was just so hot. Well, he had changed the approach the whole time. Now, for that white hot period, he's not going to get those results. But I think the change is real. And he's now back on my radar anyway for middle infield. Just looking at that fly ball average exit velocity of 97.6, that is in elite range. That's in Nelson Cruz, Miguel Sano range. And again, he may not sustain it, but that's, to me, I think that we are seeing a new Joey Votto. Do you need this data to say that? Maybe not. You can probably, I knew that anyway. But looking at that 97.6, that pops. I may again be a little bit higher than someone who goes, of course, he's going to, he talked about hitting more fly balls. He's doing it. I don't need this data. I may be a little higher than you just by looking at that, how 7 mile an hour difference. That's huge. One last player, Sal Perez. All right. Now, he missed 2019 with Tommy John surgery, or, recovering from Tommy John. So that's why I had to go back to 2018 to get the spread. Whatever it is, 48 home runs last year, 161 games for a catcher. Granted, 40 of them were at DH. So, all right, yeah, is he going to play that number of games? He's a catcher. Is he going to get hurt? What I'm really most interested in is, where did the power come from? How likely is this to sustain the rate of the power? And then, the playing time, that whole risk is important. But for now anyway, the question I'm answering myself is the power. How likely, on a rate basis, on a per plate appearance basis, I'll worry about the plate appearances later, on a per plate appearance basis, how likely is Sal Perez to sustain the power? And here's where I'm going to get into. I'm a numbers guy, but I'm going to add a little narrative in. And maybe it's wrong, maybe it's right. But, we numbers guys get criticized for getting our nose out of the spreadsheet, watch the games, think outside the box a little bit. So maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe I'm all wet. But, but this is what I'm thinking with Perez. Looking at the numbers, the average exit velocity, it went up. It didn't go up huge. I mean, it went up a bit, but it didn't go up huge. Even the fly ball average exit velocity, it went up, but it wasn't the same spike that we saw out of Joey Votto. And the line drive stayed the same, and even the launch angle, it's kind of last year's launch angle was in between the past couple of years. So I look at this and I want, was this a swing change? Was this an actual approach change? I think he just may have been swinging the bat harder. I think that because in 2019 he was rehabbing from Tommy John, not crouching. I wouldn't say, he's obviously doing a whole lot more than I was looking, easy to say, but he wasn't crouching for 140 times a year. Last year was a shortened season. Maybe he was fresher last year, and maybe he just was able to swing the bat harder for the season. Maybe he just felt better. Wasn't as run down, and he just had his overall bat speed higher. And there's some evidence of a little bit more fly balls, at least compared to last year, 2020. Sorry, with a short season, but compared to 2018, there's a potential of more. But I don't see this as much of a launch angle revolution as I do a guy that was just feeling good, feeling it. And I think the power is going to drop off organically. Now you factor in, is he really going to play 161 games again? Actually, I need to adjust my projection. I'm actually going to lower him. I already lowered him. I'm talking myself into lowering him even more. I bet he falls to my third or fourth ranked catcher, not the first. And that's where he's going in drafts now. So that's some of the ways that I use this data when I granularly look at these players. Again, you have the idea, you have the concept, the knowledge now, what matters and what not. And you can, if you're into the coming up with your own regressions for your own projections or whatever you want to do, now you have a better idea of what you want to look into to add to tweak the formula. But to me, the biggest thing is when I hear someone say max EV or a player's EV, I move on, because to me, it's not as important as the components. So that's it. We actually finished with the 5 minutes that we needed to finish.
You did it.
We did it, and I don't know if there were some questions or not.
I have one for you,
all right.
Todd. So first of all, this is great, and again, it just kind of adds to my list of things that I'm learning as we go along. I was like, okay, right, yeah, I need to be thinking about this and that for my player evaluation.
You used to be a pitcher, right?
Yeah, in college, yeah.
So is it kind of weird that Zola's telling me I didn't need to induce soft contact? It's kind of to me, it just blows my mind.
Yeah, you know what's really funny, Zola, is I used to I learned how to throw two seamers inside to college kids essentially, and like I got so many ground balls to third base and shortstop, and that was my game. Yeah. And it's kind of fun. I'm like, oh man, I want all the soft contact guys to do well because of that. But no, if I could strike at everybody, I would have.
Well, you wouldn't be here. Well, you wouldn't.
Yeah,
if
there
you
you
could,
go, right?
You'd be
a
guest
here. I care that much about pitcher list, and I want to survive, and I want PitchCon to be a thing.
Anyway, you had a question.
No, yeah. So I think what's really cool here, the biggest takeaway I have, and correct me if I'm wrong if it's not the thing that I should be thinking about, but is only thing I care about then is really fastball exit velocity, right? Sorry, not fastball. Oh my God, flyball average exit velocity.
Yeah.
And what do you have? I must have missed it. You may have done this. Do you have some sort of ranges of like, hey, look, these are the ones where you say, like, oh, that's good. This is elite. Like you said, for example, that was Nelson Cruz, Miguel Sano area for Votto, who was about, I think I saw like 97, 96. But 97.6, I think it was for Votto. But it's like Brandon Crawford at 94.5 or something. Is that like good, above average? Because obviously it's going to be more than the 88 of the average velocity they were kind of used, or average exit velocity that we're used to. I'm sorry. I'm speaking so much in pitching terms. It's shocking. I know. I
wrote these down. I wrote the averages down, and I don't, because I wanted to actually mention it, and I didn't put it on the slide. It's around ground balls around 87, 80, or actually no, ground balls even lower, 84, 85. Line drives around 92. Fly balls around 94.
Okay, so if I see something above 94. Then I'm thinking, okay, this is legit.
Yeah, I'm gonna. You know what I'll do is I'll look up the numbers and I will tag it on Twitter. I'll tag it onto one of the
Cool.
sheets,
Great.
for sure.
Yeah,
And
it'd be cool if is there isn't on Statcast right now like a bar or like a percentile showing where their flyball average exit velocity is there?
not that I know of. I
Okay.
have access to some data that it's public data, but I can
Yeah.
pull it up quicker because
Mhm.
lucky that way.
Yeah.
I think Chris Clegg is doing some work on percentile, but I think he's doing it on average exit velocity in general.
Mhm.
Chris, if you're watching, maybe you now want to do I don't know if they have flyball itself, but they have flyball line drive, and maybe that's going to be close and better. If they parse out the ground ball data, at least get you a better, because what Chris's data showed from Fantrax was a 0.45, 0.5 correlation between average
Mhm.
exit velocity and power, which is kind of what we showed here. But I
Right.
think you're going to get it up in the 0.6 or 7 range, at least if you use the fly ball / line drive. People that can scrape better than I can probably get the data off of Statcast for just
Mhm.
fly ball.
Sure. And yeah, it'd be pretty cool to have like, for hitters. I feel like that's a major thing on pages that you'd want to see, right? It's just like, hey, what is their fly ball average exit velocity? How does this kind of rank in the league? And like, here's their average of what it normally is and stuff. That's an interesting
Yeah,
idea.
and then the next question is, it, to use Eno's term, is it sticky?
Is it
You know,
sticky? Right.
he
Yep.
was able to do it this year.
Yeah.
Can he do it next year? And how many fly balls does he have to give up before we can say it's a skill?
Right, of course. And the oh, I had one other element I wanted to add to that, but that's all right. So I let's see, where are you getting your data? There's another question here that I wanted to bring up here. Okay, is there any? Let's see, we got one from Backwards. So by the way, we have two new donations as well. I do want to do a quick shout out. We have Marcus at $25 and Lance at $25, both with comments. I'll shout those out at the top of the hour. But thank you so much for your donations. And again, I've seen some stuff. If you just load it in incognito, if you're having any problems making a contribution, that should fix the problem. So definitely go and do
I didn't
that.
have any issue yesterday.
Well, good. I'm glad you didn't. And you are awesome so much, Todd, for supporting the cause. Sacris here asks if there is one guy you look at where the numbers say he should be performing better versus actual counting stats, who would it be?
I'm not good at that things. I'm getting old. I don't remember. I have players. I know I've written about them on RotoWire, the Z files. I will find an answer, and again, I will tag that on Twitter.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
I can go through my profiles that I've written, and I'm sure there's somebody that I'm higher on that just because of because of that.
Cool. All right. But yeah, Todd, you did it. You made it work. I'm proud of you for figuring out, all the stuff. And you said, I saw this on Twitter. This was your first PowerPoint, right?
I mean, I'm an old scientist. I've given seminars out the yin yang.
Well, right.
This is the first time I had to use. We used to slides, but so
Yeah.
this, I'm talking in the grad school in the '90s, where But yeah, so this is also weird too, because it's just weird that I expect to hear the groans from the bad jokes or the trying to it's just weird talking to a screen when I've for all
Yeah.
my life have been talking to live audience. So
Well,
anyway.
you were smooth doing it. You did a great job. And Todd, once again, plug everything that you're doing. And really, thanks again for being part of PitchCon.
Home base is Masters Ball. We platinum. Actually, at this point, we have gold and platinum. We have subscriber content. Work for RotoWire. I work for ESPN. You know this because you were a guest last weekend. I do the Saturday show on Sirius XM MLB Network Radio with Clay Link from RotoWire. Once in a while, we'll appear on the Baseball HQ podcast, and we'll give a quick plug to First Pitch Florida coming up in early March, coincidental with Labor, where you get to see me. I should have mentioned that I sound. All right, I mean, I'm shorter than I sound on the radio, as you can see from the screen here. You got to see me in person. Nick, you were with us in August. I'm sorry, yeah, October, right?
Yeah.
In Arizona. I don't know if you're making it out for the Florida one, but excellent.
I'll be there in a month. Yeah.
Yeah, just booked my flight,
wait.
so looking forward to that.
It's the best time, really. It's just so great to hang out. We're doing it all virtually now. This actually PitchCon existed because quarantine hit and we couldn't do anything, and I wanted to replicate a conference as best I could because I missed everybody. and to actually do it in person again. It's a really, really wonderful time. So if you can make it out there, definitely go and do that. Todd, thank you again. We're going to move on to the next panel now, and we'll talk soon. Take care.
All right, man. Thank you.
All right.